Admiral James Reed stood at the observation deck of Earth Defense Station Alpha, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. Through the reinforced glass window, he watched as another alien ship limped toward Earth's orbit. Unlike the sleek diplomatic vessels that had ignored humanity for the past 50 years, this one was different. Its silver hull bore the scars of recent battle, with visible plasma burns stretching across its port side. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," said Lieutenant Tom Baker, his fingers dancing across the holographic display. "Their message, it's a request for immediate audience with Earth's military command." Reed's expression remained neutral, but his mind raced with possibilities. For decades, the Galactic Council had treated Earth like a backwater planet, barely worth acknowledging. Now they arrived with battle-damaged ships and urgent requests. "Put it on the main screen," Reed ordered, turning to face the large display that dominated the station's command center. The image that appeared made several junior officers gasp. The alien commander, a tall being with iridescent scales and multiple eyes, showed visible signs of exhaustion, something Reed had never seen in their kind before. "People of Earth," the alien spoke, its translation software converting its clicks and whistles into English. "I am High Commander Vex of the Galactic Council's Defense Fleet. We need your help." Reed allowed himself a small smile. "After 50 years of treating us like primitive savages, now you need our help." "Interesting timing, Commander." The alien's secondary eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of distress in their species. "The galaxy burns, Admiral. The Void Collective advances through system after system, consuming everything in their path. We were wrong about your people. What we saw as primitive might be our only hope for survival." Behind Reed, the station's AI displayed tactical data across multiple screens. Reports flooded in from Earth's deep space monitoring stations, showing massive energy signatures at the edges of charted space. Whatever was happening out there, it was big. "Tell me more about this Void Collective," Reed said, gesturing for his staff to begin recording. The alien commander's image flickered as it transmitted tactical data. "They were once like us, organic beings seeking advancement, but they merged with their machines, becoming something horrible. They don't conquer worlds, Admiral. They consume them, convert them. Every planet they take makes them stronger." Reed walked closer to the screen, studying the tactical displays. The pattern was clear, a systematic advance through the galaxy, leaving dead systems in its wake. Earth lay directly in their path. "And why come to us?" Reed asked, though he already suspected the answer. "The Council has thousands of advanced worlds at its disposal." High Commander Vex's scales shifted color slightly, their equivalent of a grim smile. "Because you are different. Your people, you still think like survivors. While we spent millennia perfecting our societies and specializing our skills, humanity kept its edge. You still know how to fight dirty, how to improvise, how to survive." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's primitive nature, their ability to adapt, to think unconventionally, to survive against all odds, might be exactly what the galaxy needed. Reed turned to his staff. "Get me the Joint Chiefs, and someone wake up the President." He faced the screen again. "Commander Vex, prepare your diplomatic team. We have a lot to discuss." As the alien commander's image faded, Reed returned to the observation window. The damaged ship now hung in orbit alongside Earth's defense fleet, a stark reminder that the galaxy had changed. Humanity had spent centuries looking up at the stars, wondering if they were ready for what lay out there. Now the stars were looking back, and they needed humanity's help. The next few hours would determine not just Earth's fate, but that of countless civilizations across the galaxy. And perhaps, Reed thought, it was time to show these advanced races just what primitive humans could do when pushed into a corner. The war was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The United Earth Council chamber buzzed with tension as High Commander Vex's hologram towered over the assembly. Military leaders, politicians, and scientists from every major nation sat in stunned silence as they watched footage of entire solar systems being consumed by the Void Collective. This recording is from the Centauri Belt, Vex explained, his scaled skin shifting colors as he spoke. 3 months ago, it was home to 12 billion beings. Now, the image showed dead planets stripped of resources, their surfaces carved up like industrial mining sites. Admiral Reed stepped forward, his boots echoing in the quiet chamber. Tell them what you told me about Earth, about humans. Vex's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. Your world. We call it a death world. Most spacefaring races evolved on peaceful planets with stable environments. But humans? He gestured to a display showing Earth's history. You survived ice ages, massive extinctions, and countless natural disasters. Your bodies can endure extreme conditions that would kill most species instantly. And that's why you need us, General Anna Martinez said, leaning forward in her seat. Because we're tough. No, Vex replied. Because you're survivors. Look at this. The hologram changed to show various alien weapons and ships. Our weapons are perfect, precise. We fight wars like mathematicians solving equations. But the Void Collective adapts. They learn. They evolve mid-battle. Dr. Robert Wilson, Earth's leading xenobiologist, stood up. And humans, how do we fight? Like devils, Vex said, causing murmurs through the chamber. You throw mud in your enemy's eyes. You play dead to ambush predators. You use primitive projectile weapons alongside energy beams because they can't be blocked by shields. You? He paused, searching for words. You cheat. The chamber erupted in debate. Some were offended. Others laughed. Admiral Reed raised his hand for silence. Show them the simulation, he ordered. Vex nodded, and the hologram displayed a battle scenario. A council fleet, organized in perfect formation, engaged a Void Collective swarm. The council ships fired with precision, their formations flawless. But the collective adapted, changed tactics, and eventually overwhelmed them. Then the simulation reset, this time with human ships added to the mix. The human vessels broke formation, used asteroids as cover, played dead to lure enemies into traps, and even deliberately crashed damaged ships into enemy vessels. The chaos disrupted the collective's ability to predict and adapt. This is why we need you, Vex said. The collective cannot adapt to what they cannot predict. And humans, his scales flickered with what might have been admiration. You are wonderfully unpredictable. President Helen Moore stood up, her expression stern. And if we help you, what guarantees do we have? The council ignored us for 50 years, called us primitive, dangerous. We were wrong, Vex admitted. We thought advancement meant becoming more orderly, more predictable. We forgot that nature's greatest strength is chaos. Adaptation. The very things humanity embodies. Admiral Reed walked to the center of the chamber. The Void Collective is 17 months from Earth at their current speed. Whether we join the Council or not, war is coming. The question is, do we fight alone, or do we show the galaxy what humanity can really do? The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. Humanity had always wondered if they were ready for the stars. Now they realized maybe the stars weren't ready for them. President Moore looked at the assembled leaders, then back at Vex. High Commander, please wait outside while we vote. It seems we need to decide if we're ready to teach the galaxy how primitive humans wage war. As Vex's hologram faded, Admiral Reed smiled. The galaxy had spent centuries advancing beyond their primitive natures. Now they needed humanity precisely because they had kept theirs. Sometimes, he thought, the old ways were the best ways. The devils were about to be unleashed, and the Void Collective would learn why Earth was called a death world. Captain Mark Wilson stood in the frozen wastes of Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon, staring at something that shouldn't exist. His suit's lights illuminated a metal object buried in the ancient ice, a probe, but not one of human design. "Control, you need to see this," he said, activating his helmet camera. "It's been here for at least 50 years, based on the ice layers." Back on Earth, Admiral Reed and a team of scientists watched the feed with growing concern. The probe's design matched the Void Collective's technology perfectly. "They've been watching us," Reed muttered. "All this time, they've been studying us." The emergency meeting that followed brought together Earth's highest-ranking military officials. The holographic displays showed similar discoveries across the solar system: hidden probes on Mars, in the asteroid belt, even in Earth's oceans. "The collective didn't just stumble onto our system," Captain Wilson reported, now back from Europa. "They've been preparing for this war for decades. These probes, they're not just watching. They're mapping, learning, testing our defenses." General Martinez pulled up the latest deep space scans. "We've detected 3 more collective fleets entering Council space. Their pattern is clear now." She drew a line across the star map. "They're not just expanding randomly. They're cutting straight for Earth." "But why?" President Moore asked, her face pale under the harsh lights. "Why target us specifically?" Dr. Wilson stepped forward, his research papers floating as holograms around him. "Because we're dangerous." He pulled up analysis of the probe's data storage. These probes weren't just studying our military. They were studying our history, our wars, our ability to adapt and survive. "The collective sees us as a threat, not for what we are now, but for what we could become." Admiral Reed nodded slowly. "They're afraid of us. A species that evolved on a death world, that survived countless extinction events, that went from horse-drawn carriages to space travel in less than 2 centuries. He paused, letting it sink in. "We're not just a potential ally for the Council. We're an existential threat to the collective." The room erupted in urgent discussions. Captain Wilson walked to the central display, pointing at the probe's internal components. "Look at how they think. Everything is perfect, standardized, optimized. But humans? We're messy, unpredictable. We keep backup systems that make no logical sense. We plan for impossible scenarios. We chaos their order," Reed finished, "and that terrifies them." President Moore stood up, her decision visible on her face. "Then we don't have a choice. If we wait, if we try to stay neutral, the collective will come for us anyway. At least with the Council's help, we have a fighting chance." "Not just a chance," Captain Wilson said, pulling up his tactical analysis. "An advantage. The collective thinks they know us from their probes, but they've never seen humanity at war. Real war. The kind where we throw out the rulebook and do whatever it takes to survive." Admiral Reed smiled grimly. "Time to show them why studying humans and fighting humans are 2 very different things." The next hour was spent drafting humanity's response, not just to the Council's request for help, but to the collective's hidden threat. Earth would join the war, but on their terms. No more hiding in the shadows, no more perfect formations and predictable tactics. As the meeting ended, Captain Wilson looked at the probe's image one last time. "You know what's funny?" he said to Reed. "They spent all this time studying us, learning our weaknesses, our primitive nature." He smiled. "And they never realized those are actually our greatest strengths." The war was coming to Earth whether they wanted it or not. But now, humanity would bring the war to them first. It was time to show the galaxy why even the most advanced civilizations feared the creatures from Earth. Commander Lisa Thompson watched from the bridge of her ship as 50 converted mining vessels moved into position. The ships looked ugly, nothing like the sleek Council warships. They were built from old asteroid mining platforms, their hulls covered in hastily attached armor plates and modified mining lasers. "This is crazy enough that it might actually work," her second-in-command, Jack Porter, said as he checked the tactical display. "The collective won't expect an attack from mining ships." "That's exactly the point," Lisa replied, studying the massive collective processing station ahead. The structure was like a mechanical spider, its legs stretching out to drain resources from a captured planet. They expect perfect warships, proper military tactics. Not this. The Council's military advisor on board, a tall alien named Rix, looked deeply uncomfortable. "Commander, I must again protest. These mining lasers are not designed for combat. The heat buildup alone will melt our ships if we use them too long," Lisa finished. "We know. That's why we're going to hit them hard and fast, like a thunderbolt." She opened the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, final positions. Remember your training. We're not soldiers today. We're miners having a really bad day at work." The collective station grew larger on their screens. It hadn't noticed them yet. Their ships looked too much like normal mining vessels, the kind of ships the collective usually ignored as too primitive to be a threat. "They're scanning us," Jack reported. "Standard automated defense protocols. They think we're just salvage ships." Lisa smiled. "Let's show them how wrong they are. All ships, execute Thunderbolt Protocol." The fleet of mining ships suddenly broke formation. Instead of organizing into neat military lines like the Council would, they scattered like startled fish. Each ship activated their mining thrusters, designed for precise asteroid work, but now used for wild, unpredictable movements. The collective station's defenses activated, but they were designed to track and predict military vessels. These ships moved like drunk dancers, their patterns making no logical sense. "First wave, fire," Lisa ordered. Mining lasers, originally designed to cut through asteroid rock, now burned through the station's outer hull. The collected shields, calibrated for military weapons, didn't recognize the mining equipment as a threat until it was too late. "Second wave, moving in," Jack called out. More ships darted forward, their lasers cutting deeper. Warning lights flashed across Lisa's bridge as her ship's systems began to overheat. Rix watched in amazement as the primitive human tactics wreaked havoc. This is impossible. The station's predictive systems can't lock onto your movement patterns. There is no logic to your attacks." "That's humanity for you." Lisa grinned, even as her ship shuddered from the heat of its overtaxed engines. "We don't need logic. We need results." The collective station began to break apart, its massive legs twitching like a dying insect. As explosions chained through its core, Lisa ordered the fleet to pull back. Several ships had partially melted mining arrays, and every vessel was dangerously close to overheating. But they had done it. Humanity's first major strike against the collective had succeeded, using mining tools and crazy maneuvers instead of proper military weapons. As they retreated, Lisa sent a final message to the dying station. "Greetings from Earth. Remember, sometimes the primitive solution is the best solution." Back on the bridge of her battered ship, Lisa watched the station collapse. "Send word to Admiral Reed. Tell him Operation Thunderbolt was a success, and tell him," she looked at the amazed Rix, "tell him the Council's about to learn why thinking outside the box is humanity's specialty." The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's primitive nature wasn't a weakness. It was their greatest weapon. Admiral Reed stood before the combined fleet commanders of the Galactic Council, his presentation showing the results of the past month's operations. On the massive screen behind him, footage played of human ships performing what looked like chaos, but was actually carefully planned madness. "As you can see," Reed said, pointing to a battle replay, "conventional tactics don't work against the collective, so we stopped using them." He smiled as the footage showed Earth ships deliberately flying into asteroid fields, using the rocks as cover and weapons. High Commander Vex leaned forward, his scales shimmering with interest. "Your ships, they're fighting in ways our tactical computers can't even process. The collective's prediction algorithms are failing." "Exactly," Reed nodded. "You can't predict what doesn't make sense. Watch this." He played footage from Commander Thompson's latest raid. Human ships were flying in spiral patterns, some moving backwards, others spinning while firing. "We call this drunk bee formation. It looks random, but each pilot knows exactly what they're doing. The alien commanders murmured among themselves. One of them, a crystalline being named Axe, spoke up. But this goes against all military doctrine. Your ships waste energy, take unnecessary risks, and win battles. Reed interrupted. In the past month, human tactics have destroyed 12 collective processing stations and disrupted their supply lines in 3 sectors. He changed the display to show a strategic map. We don't attack their warships. We hit their supply lines, their resource centers, their communication hubs. The map showed red dots where human fleets had struck. Not at obvious military targets, but at seemingly random support facilities. The collective's advance had slowed to a crawl as they tried to protect everything at once. "This is why we needed you," Vex said, turning to his fellow commanders. "Humans don't just think differently. They make us think differently." Reed walked through the holographic map, pointing out key victories. "We've started teaching these tactics to your crews. Some are adapting well." He highlighted several council ships that had begun mimicking human warfare styles. Others, he diplomatically didn't finish the sentence. "But the cost," Axe protested. "You've lost ships, crews, less than you have with conventional attacks." Reed countered. "Yes, we take risks. Yes, we lose people. But we're pushing the collective back. For the first time, they're the ones trying to predict what we'll do next." The footage changed to show a recent battle. Council ships, now trained by humans, performed unpredictable maneuvers alongside Earth vessels. The collective ships, designed to counter logical attack patterns, couldn't adapt fast enough. "Your civilization spent millennia perfecting warfare into a science," Reed explained. "But war isn't science. It's chaos. Humans understand this because we've never stopped fighting. Not just enemies. We fight weather, disease, our own planet. We survive because we adapt." He played one final clip. A collective ship trying to predict a human attack pattern and failing completely as the Earth vessel did something no logical computer would ever suggest. It played dead, drifting like space debris, only to come alive at the perfect moment and strike. "The galaxy is changing," Reed concluded. The collective thought they could predict everything, control everything. But they've never faced an enemy who embraces chaos as a weapon. As the alien commanders filed out, many still shaking their heads at human tactics, Vex stayed behind. "You know," he said to Reed, "when we first discovered Earth, we thought you were too primitive to join galactic society." Reed watched as another battle replay showed human ships performing their chaotic dance through space. "Maybe the galaxy wasn't ready for us," he replied. "But it needs us now." The ripples of humanity's influence spread through the galaxy, changing not just how the war was fought, but how an entire civilization thought about combat. Sometimes, the old ways, the primitive ways, were exactly what the future needed. Captain Mark Wilson walked through the damaged halls of a captured collective data center, his boots crunching on broken metal and crystalline data cores. His team had taken the facility just hours ago, using what the Council called insane tactics. They had hidden their ships in a nearby asteroid's ice field, letting the frozen water mask their heat signatures. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Amy Ross, her face pale as she emerged from the central data room. "You need to see this. Now." Wilson followed her into a chamber filled with holographic displays. Most were damaged, but one still flickered with ancient data logs. As he read the information scrolling across the screen, his hands clenched into fists. "Get me Admiral Reed," he ordered, his voice tight with anger. "And download everything. The Council needs to explain this." Hours later, Earth's High Command gathered in an emergency session. The holographic displays showed what Wilson had discovered: decades-old communications between certain Council members and their intelligence services. Communications about Earth, about the collective. "They knew," Wilson said, his voice echoing in the silent chamber. "The Council knew the collective was coming for Earth. They knew 50 years ago." Admiral Reed stood motionless, watching the data scroll past. Not just new, he added. They monitored the collective's expansion, calculated exactly when they would reach Earth. And they did nothing. President Moore's face was a mask of barely controlled rage. Why? Why would they hide this from us? Because they were afraid, General Martinez said, reading through the translated documents. Look at these assessments. They'd predicted that if humanity joined galactic society too early, we would advance too quickly, become too powerful. She looked up. They wanted the collective to eliminate us before we became a threat. The chamber erupted in angry shouts and demands for action. In the midst of the chaos, a new alert flashed across the screens. The collective had launched their largest offensive yet. 3 massive fleets, moving directly toward Earth. Perfect timing, Wilson muttered, right when we discover the Council's betrayal. Admiral Reed raised his hand for silence. The question is, what do we do now? The collective is coming. If we break with the Council, we might not survive, President Moore finished. She stood, her decision visible on her face. But if we stay allied with people who were willing to sacrifice our entire species, we have a third option, Wilson said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. The Council didn't just betray us. They betrayed their own principles, their own people. He pulled up tactical displays showing Council worlds that had fallen to the collective. How many of their civilians died because they waited too long to act? Because they were too afraid of us to ask for help sooner? Reed nodded slowly, understanding. You're suggesting we go public, show everyone what their leaders did. The Council fleet commanders respect us now, Martinez added. They've seen what we can do. If they knew their leaders sacrificed millions just because they feared human potential. President Moore smiled grimly. Then we split the Council. Not between humans and aliens, but between those who want to survive and those who let fear rule them. The displays suddenly lit up with new alerts. The collective fleet was accelerating, joined by previously hidden forces. They had been waiting for this moment of division. Time to choose, Reed said, opening communications to all Council ships in the sector. Do we let old fears tear us apart, or do we show the collective why they should have feared us working together all along? As the alerts continued to flash, humanity prepared for its hardest battle yet, not just against the collective, but against the fear and prejudice that had almost doomed them all. The next few hours would determine not just Earth's fate, but the future of galactic civilization itself. The Arcturus sector blazed with weapons fire as the largest battle in galactic history unfolded. Admiral Reed stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Defiance, watching as both Council and human ships fought side by side against the massive collective fleet. Status report, he called out, as the ship shook from a near miss. 60% of Council ships have pledged loyalty to the joint fleet, Commander Thompson reported from her station. The rest, she didn't need to finish. The ships loyal to the old Council leadership had retreated, leaving their allies to face the collective alone. Good, Reed said, surprising everyone on the bridge. Better to know who stands with us now, before the real fight begins. The tactical display showed hundreds of ships moving in patterns that would have been impossible months ago. Council vessels, once rigidly organized, now danced through space using human tactics. They flew backwards, played dead, used debris as weapons. Everything humanity had taught them. Sir, Captain Wilson's voice crackled over the comm. The collective's bringing in their secondary fleet. They're trying to surround us. Reed smiled. Just as we predicted. All ships, execute Operation Primal Fear. Across the battlefield, human and allied Council ships suddenly scattered in every direction, like a school of fish breaking apart. The collective's tactical computers struggled to track the seemingly random movements. Now, Reed ordered, show them what primitive really means. From behind nearby asteroids, Earth's secret weapon appeared, a fleet of ships that looked like they belonged in a museum. Old chemical rockets, modified space shuttles, even ancient satellite launchers, all retrofitted with modern engines. They're not even trying to predict these ships, Thompson reported with a grin. The collective's computers don't recognize them as weapons. They're too primitive to register as threats. The outdated vessels charged straight at the collective fleet. Their weapons were simple: kinetic rounds, physical missiles, even chunks of metal. But against an enemy whose shields were designed to stop energy weapons and plasma beams, these primitive attacks were devastatingly effective. All ships, close combat range. Reed commanded, "Show them why Earth was called a death world." The battle descended into chaos, exactly as humanity had planned. Council ships used their advanced weapons alongside Earth's primitive tactics. Old and new technology combined in ways the collective could never have predicted. Their main control ship is exposed, Wilson reported. They're trying to adapt, but their systems can't process all the variables. There are too many different attack patterns. Reed opened a channel to all ships. This is how humanity fights. We don't evolve past our primitive nature. We embrace it. We learn from it. And now, we'll win with it. The combined fleet struck as one. Modern council ships fired their energy weapons, while Earth vessels launched physical projectiles. The collective's defenses, designed to handle one or the other, couldn't cope with both. As the collective's main ship began to break apart, Reed sent one final message. "You thought we were too primitive to join galactic society, but our primitive nature just saved it." Hours later, as the cleanup began, High Commander Vex stood with Reed on the Defiance's observation deck, watching the debris of the collective fleet drift by. "You've changed everything," Vex said quietly. "Not just how we fight, but how we think about advancement." Reed nodded. "Sometimes moving forward means remembering where you came from. Humanity never forgot our primitive roots. We built upon them." The victory in the Arcturus sector marked more than just the defeat of the collective. It marked the beginning of a new era in galactic society, one where advancement didn't mean abandoning the past, but learning from it. As Reed watched Earth ships help rescue survivors from damaged council vessels, he knew the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had not just joined the galactic community. They had revolutionized it. The primitives had become the teachers, and the galaxy was better for it.